Students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Victoria here on the west coast of Canada, where we are experiencing some very hot, record-breaking June days. I hope everybody is having a good weekend so far, staying healthy, staying strong and productive. Hi Abnish in India. Sharwar, Alam, good to see you. Zohra, Gurs Rover, welcome to our members, Jainil, and a good day to you, Imad, or a good evening, I should say. In this class, students, we are looking at speaking part 3, the third and final part of the speaking interview. The speaking interview has 3 parts. And we're going to practice and talk about wowing the examiner. It means impressing the examiner. To wow someone means to really impress them so that they're thinking that you're doing a great job. All right. While we wait for a few more of your peers, this lesson is presented to you by aehelp.com. That's academicenglishhelp.com. As well as gieltshelp.com. That's generalieltshelp.com. On both of our websites, we have lots and lots of help for the speaking section. You can speak with other IELTS students. You can book practice interviews with native English speaking tutors for the speaking section. The websites look like this. This is the Academic IELTS website here. You can join the premium package by clicking this big red button. It's a one-time payment for lifetime access. We are an official British Council IELTS test registration center and certified agents. And for the general IELTS, it's the green background, and you can click that big red button to join us there. When you join, you have a My Student account. When you go to your My Student account, you have lots of resources, computer-based practice exams, study plans, audio CDs, over 100 videos, and you have this student partner speaking. In the student partner speaking, when you click on that window and you keep it open, you're going to find other students, like right now, Alekia and Jurlin Victoria is in here. Oh, that person just left. And you can video and audio chat with them. So check that out. Okay, say hello and begin practicing. We also have apps, Academic IELTS Help and General IELTS Help. Check out those apps and follow us on Instagram, IELTS_AEHelp, GIELTS Help. Contact me at adrian@aehelp.com if you have questions. And if you want to get our books from Amazon, just our exam books, you can do that as well. You can get our exam books. We have several of them. Search for AE Helps Academic IELTS and GE Helps General IELTS. Welcome to our moderator, Carolina. Welcome to many more of our members, Sadesh, Pawan, June. Welcome to the emojis from Eugen. Hello, how is everybody doing? All right. So tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, no class. Back on Wednesday for live classes all the way until Saturday. That's our new schedule. Our new schedule for next week will be on our YouTube community board. Okay, this is our regular schedule to have these times and these days. All right, and just to kind of warm up to get into part 3, we'll go over our part 2 response from the class that we just finished before this one. So this is speaking, so make sure to speak and repeat, okay? Very, very important. Just speak and repeat. Let go of your fears. Be confident. Be you. Be bold. Part 2 question that we answered was talk about an idea you had to improve a relationship. And we talked about the idea of having a block party, that means a party on our street, to improve the relationships with our neighbors. And this is the answer that we came up with here. So repeat after me, and then we'll get into part 3. And the reason this is important is because part 2 is connected with part 3. Okay? So, all right, Yarabisha, I'm happy to have you back in the class. Long time no see. All right, so here we go, everyone. From the top, 3, 2, 1. A fantastic idea that I came up with to improve the relations among my neighbors was to have a block party in early June of this summer. I had come up with this idea because I realized that my neighbors became very estranged from each other due to the COVID lockdown over the past year. Also, 3 new neighbors had moved to our block during 2020, and they didn't know anyone on our street. I was watching a comedy movie called Block Party, and this sparked the idea. In order to make my idea a reality, I needed to send notifications to my neighbors. I did this by printing out some flyers and putting them in mailboxes, and then following up with my neighbors a week later by knocking on some doors. Of course, for this event, I had to coordinate some food, games, and music to make sure that everyone would have a fun time. Fortunately, most of my neighbors were on board, and we had a fun-filled day in early June, strengthening old bonds, forming new relationships, and building a strong network of support and trust in our community. I feel that this was truly a successful event, and in the future, I would suggest my neighbors to have such a block party at least twice a year in spring and late summer, just to really keep up with what everybody is doing and to build a strong community. All right, Adrian, your 1-minute preparation time is up, your 2 minutes is up. Now we will continue with part 3. For part 3, I will ask you a question related to your part 2 answer and some questions on this topic. What do you think, students, might be a question after this part 2 response? So the way IELTS works is when you finish saying all of this, the examiner will listen, and while they're listening and marking, they will think about a question to ask you about your answer. So here they will ask you something about this idea, something about this block party that you had. What do you think they will ask you? Okay, and this is already kind of part 3. This is the connection to part 3. So here you're going to have a question. What is that question? Arda says, would you make a party like this again in the future? Sure, maybe. Would you host, or would you make is okay? Would you host a party like this again in the future? Yeah, possible. Okay. Abhishek, yeah, maybe. How much did you spend on this block party? Yeah. It could be a question the examiner might ask you. Nikhil says the examiner might ask you something like, what was your experience bonding with your neighbors? Yeah, that could be a question too. Vijay says, what might be some changes that you would make in the future? Amanda says, why do you think it's necessary to build relationships with your neighbors? That's a very good one. Let's answer that one. Yeah, So all of these could be questions. I really like the one Amanda's asking because the focus is on improving relationships, and the examiners do think about questions that are really related with the topic. So Amanda, that was very clever. This is a very likely question. It's very well related to the topic of relationships. So they could absolutely ask this one. Why do you think it is necessary to build good relationships with your neighbors? Okay. So give me an answer for this. And when you give an answer, think about answer plus explanation plus example. Okay. You really want to relate to your response. Okay. So very good. Very nice, Amanda. Okay. So why do you think it is necessary to build good relationships with your neighbors? Okay. Give me a nice full sentence answer for this one. Okay. And I see lots of other questions as well. So you see, the examiner does have a lot of different questions they could possibly ask you. Naim An says, as humans are social creatures, the more strong relationships people have at their disposal, not only does it give them a sense of community and belonging, but they are also more successful. Okay, that's a bit of a general concept, An. Here we're specifically asking about relationships with your neighbors. So not necessarily your friend, your colleague, your sibling, but specifically your neighbor. So always answer specific to the question. Okay? So that's my tip, An, for your response. Okay? Ramnik says it helps to build a healthy environment in the neighborhood. Good start, Ramnik. What do you mean, a healthy environment? Okay. Andromeda, yeah, it's a very good idea to give examples in your speaking. Absolutely. It gives sustenance to your ideas. So giving examples is very important in good communication. Some smooth, flowing examples. Okay. All right. Akash Jain says there's a saying that your first relative is your neighbor. Human beings are dependent on each other, and when in need, the first one who would be there to help you is your neighbor. Okay, Akash, not bad. You have a good idea. Make it personal. So don't talk about me as the examiner and my neighbors. So don't use the word you or yours, but I and me and my, because the question is, why do you think it's necessary to build good relationships with your neighbors, not my neighbors? So Akash, I think your answer is good. Just make it personal, make it first person. So I would say something like, there's a saying that your first relative is your neighbor. Human beings are dependent on each other. And when I am in need, some of the first people who could help me are my neighbors. Like the other week when my car battery died, I asked my neighbor John to give me a jump start. That would be your band 9 answer. Okay, Akash? So since neighbors are living in close proximity, they are often the first people who can be of assistance in times of need. So it is important for me to have a good relationships, to have good relationships with those in my community. Just last week, my car battery died, and my neighbor John helped me out by jump starting my car. Okay. All right. Yeah. So good answer, right? Your neighbors live close to you. They're the first people who can help you if you're in trouble. They can lend you something. Also, you can have fun with them, right? So they're in close proximity. So here is a good answer. Okay. Repeat after me. Since neighbors are living in close proximity, they are often the first people who can be of assistance in times of need. So it is important for me to have a good relationship with those in my community. Just last week, my car battery died and my neighbor John helped me out by jump starting my car. That would get you a band 9 for sure. Okay. Why? Because you have a very clear answer, explanation, and an example. It's very specific to the question that you're being asked. You're using some great vocabulary, especially when you throw in words like car battery died and jump starting my car. By the way, those cables that you have in the car, they're called jumper cables. Okay. So those cables that you hook onto the battery to charge your car battery if the battery dies, those are called jumper cables. That word could really help you out in English when you're traveling and you've got to rent a car. So remember it, okay? Everybody got that? Jumper cable? That's one of those. There's certain words in English that could really save somebody's life, okay? So it's good to learn that vocabulary. Like, does anybody know CPR? CPR is when you resuscitate somebody, okay? Or the Heimlich maneuver, if somebody's choking. So there are certain safety words that when you're traveling could possibly save the life of someone you love or somebody else. So make sure to learn them. Jumper cables, maybe not life-saving, but definitely stress-saving, okay? Jumper cables. All right. I'm sure you could eventually explain it. You know, cable, battery, right? But jumper cables, okay? Alex says it's cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Indeed, it is. Okay, all right, everyone. So again, you finish part 2. The examiner asks you a follow-up question. You give a nice, clear, specific answer, explanation, example, okay? That's how long your answer should be, Imad. And then they'll continue with part 3. So here we go. Part 3 will be something about relationships, okay? And the examiner will say, okay, now I'll ask you some questions on a topic related to part 2. Let's talk about solitude. If you don't know what that word means, don't panic. It's fine. You can think of what it might mean. So what do you think the word solitude means? Think of other words that sound similar. You might come up with words like solo. Okay. You might think of Star Wars like Han Solo, and there is a connection there. Okay. So what does solitude mean? Arda says solitude means to be alone. Yeah, being alone. Solitude, being alone. Exactly. Being by oneself. Okay, good. So learning lots of vocabulary as well. That's great. And in Star Wars, Han Solo, of course, he's called Han Solo because he flies around space alone. Or, well, with Chewbacca, but anyway. All right, so here we go, part 3. The examiner says, okay, let's talk about solitude. Some people believe that every person should spend some time alone in order to reflect on their character. Do you agree with this? Why or why not? Okay, part 3 questions are going to be challenging. If you're not sure what the examiner said, there are a few different steps that you can take, okay? If you're not sure, of the question. A, ask for a repeat. Say, I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Would you mind repeating the question? It's okay to do that once or twice. It's not the end of the world. You're not going to lose a ton of marks. Okay. So, yeah. So if you didn't get it the first time, just say, I'm sorry. I didn't quite catch that. Would you mind repeating the question? And then the examiner will say, sure. Some people believe that every person should spend some time alone in order to reflect on their character. Do you agree with this? Why or why not? Okay. If they go to the next question, don't panic, because you probably wouldn't have given a good answer anyway if you didn't catch it. Okay. The other way that you can get some confirmation is by paraphrasing the question. Okay. So if you paraphrase the question, you can get a bit of useful feedback. So are you asking me whether or not it is a good idea for people to spend some time by themselves? Okay, so this is paraphrasing the question that the examiner is asking you. And in this way, you will get some confirmation from the examiner whether or not you understood the question. So they'll say, yes, I am, or they'll kind of be like, and they'll repeat the question. If they repeat the question, you probably didn't understand it. Okay, keep that in mind. If they don't repeat it, they will probably say yeah. Okay. All right. So again, these are ways that you can kind of slow down the situation, make sure you understand the question. Students, do not answer questions you do not understand. That is bad. Okay. This is a very important tip. All right. It's just going to cut your exam short. So it's a very important tip. Okay, very, very important. Do not answer questions that you did not understand, as this will not get you marks. You will lose marks and time. What should you do? So again, these are just some tips, and then I promise we'll get into answering the questions. I see that Amit and Alex and Yarabisha have some answers. I'll look at that in a moment. So if you really don't understand the question, you asked for a repeat, the examiner repeats, you still don't understand it, you're kind of like, I just really don't know what he's asking me. What should you do? If you have no idea what the examiner is asking you, you're like, what do you do? Okay, what's the smartest plan in that situation? What's the smartest? Alex says paraphrase, but Alex, we've already paraphrased, still don't get it. Sadesh says move ahead. How do I do that, Sadesh? Abhishek says pass the question instead of answering it. Yeah. Yeah, An says, just say sorry and move on to the next. Yeah. So if you really don't get it, okay, say something like, sorry, I just really don't get what you are asking me. Can you please ask me the next question? Okay. Don't be shy. Say that confidently. So don't feel bad about it. It's totally normal. Even among native speakers, sometimes some questions just don't make sense to another person and they have to really discuss it. Now in the IELTS, you can't really discuss it because they cannot paraphrase it. They They can't explain their question. So it's not like a real conversation, okay? In the real world, if we don't understand a question, we would try to get the person to ask us differently or explain it further, but you can't do that in the IELTS. So then what you have to do is just say, I'm sorry, I don't get this question. I don't get what you're asking me. Can you please just move to the next question, okay? All right. And somebody just asked me there, do I lose questions? Yeah, so Yarabisha says, are we losing a score if we skip a question? Yes. So you will lose scores for skipping questions. Yeah, for coherence, but, and it's a very important but, not as much as if you give way off topic and strange answers. Okay, so you're going to still have a chance to do better if you miss a question or two than if you just start giving all kinds of weird answers to questions. Okay, so you kind of have to choose the lesser of two evils. The lesser of two evils is skipping the question rather than giving a long one. Okay, or sorry, long one, wrong one. All right. So I'm going to hop back here to the original question because I see that a lot of people answered this. And worry not, I did see that. Okay, so again, the question that we're looking at is some people believe that every person should spend some time alone in order to reflect on their character. Do you agree with this? Why or why not? Ois says, I disagree with this statement that a person should be isolated from others because we are social creatures and humans learn and develop in social surroundings. Isolation means death. Ooh. Okay, Ois. Good. Can you give me an example, Ois? Kevin says, I absolutely agree with people spending some time in solitude to better understand themselves, chiefly because doing so affords one the silence needed to think long and hard about their values. In fact, I did unplug from all social contact to take stock of my core values while I was applying for the Fulbright scholarship, and I asked myself what I treasured in life. Very good. Okay, Kevin, very nice. Nice, long, clear, specific answer with explanation and example. Yeah, so reflecting on our values is a very good idea. Lachika Mutha says, yes, I believe everybody should spend 30 minutes in solitude daily. It might seem trivial, but it can be life-changing. Spending time in solitude helps the person to relax and escape daily stress. Okay. Lachika, good. I did replace a few of your words and 30 minutes a day. You have some missing context there. So very important. An says, yes, I think people ought to have some time to examine their personalities, behaviors towards others and their community, like improving on their weaknesses in communication by hosting block parties that I just talked about. Beautiful. Really nice paraphrasing of the question, really nice explanation, and an excellent connection to the part 2 response. Those are the kinds of answers that will get you the really high band scores. As long as you say that fluently, it's a band 9. Kevin, when you say that nicely, clearly, fluently, it's a band 9. Okay? So Ois, yours, if you say it clearly, fluently, because you have a missing example and it's a little bit more broader general, it's a band 775. Okay. All right. Sidesh says, certainly, I think that an individual should set aside some hours to gauge their personality. I think that by doing this, they can achieve a third person perspective on their thoughts and decisions. I do this every night just before sleep. Very good, Sadesh. I like how you connected that smooth flowing example of you doing this. Don't use the word you and don't use the word things. So when you're practicing for your speaking, okay, avoid using the word you and things. Okay, it's another important tip, right? So when practicing good communication and for IELTS speaking, work hard to avoid using the words you and things. Okay? Only use you when people ask for opinions or suggestions for them. Okay? So if I'm asking you, what should I do in your city, or where should I go in your city, then use the word you. You should go here. You should try this food. Okay? But if I'm not asking about what I should do, don't use the word you. Things has very little value in speaking. Okay? So things can be anything. Always replace it with a better noun. All right. So again, kind of similar to what you've said. So some people believe every person should spend some time alone in order to reflect on their character. Do I agree? Yes. I absolutely support the idea that people need to take a few moments each day, like 30 minutes before sleep, do some meditation and reflect on their goals and interactions to improve on their character and live more successful lives. I do this myself and I feel better for it. Okay? All right, so here's my answer. Repeat after me. Yes, I absolutely support the idea that people need to take a few moments each day, like 30 minutes before sleep, to do some meditation and reflect on their goals and interactions to improve on their character and live more successful lives. I do this myself and I feel better for it. Okay, we're going to get more into the questions now. We're going to move along a little bit smoother, okay, with the questions. So where are good places for people to be alone with their thoughts? Okay, give me a nice full sentence answer for this one. So where are good places, so it's location here, where are good places for people to be alone with their own thoughts? Okay. La Chica says, when it comes to choosing the place to spend in solitude, I feel nature has to be the first priority. The vibration that I get when I'm in nature automatically calms me down. Okay, La Chica, good. However, so very good ideas, La Chica, and quite nice language as well. Good grammar. La Chica, the content and the quality of communication. Careful using you and I. In this case, people, individuals. Okay, again, get away from that you. All right. Okay. Tamur says, own room. Tamur, you got to speak in full sentences. Ois says, I think amazing places for individuals to practice their privacy far away from others are natural locations, their own rooms. When I want to be alone, I go fishing at Fish Lake where I release stress. Okay, good, Ois. The lake is actually called Fish Lake. Possible, I guess. Good. I like it. I like how you give a couple of different answers. Ois, you're definitely really improving in your English. Okay. I'm noticing that your grammar has improved quite a bit. In your response, you do not really have grammatical mistakes. So careful with your punctuation. Period should be right after the S for rooms and W for when, new sentence, capital W. Okay, but really nice. Oh, it's nice to see that improvement in your grammar. I remembered you were struggling with that a little bit earlier on. Okay. All right. Un says, there are several great spots that people can enjoy their solitude, like their bedrooms, bathrooms, natural places like the beach, gardens, as long as they feel comfortable being on their own. Okay, Un, where do you feel comfortable? Or, give me an example. Don't forget that example. Amanda says, personally, I support having me time at home as the best place since it's calm, it's secure, and it's a familiar environment. So it's easy to get into deep thought. Amanda, I manipulated your response a little bit for it to have further clarity. Okay, so pay attention to that. Kevin says, a wonderful place for individuals to be alone and wrestle with their thoughts is at a library, which is usually equipped with slotted tables for privacy. Another isolated haven for deep thoughts, which I think all people, where I think all people have retreated to at least once in their lives, is inside their own rooms with their doors locked. Yeah, absolutely. So where I think all people have retreated to, Kevin. Okay. All right. Paulo says, the bedroom is definitely the best place to be alone because people can close their door, keep their light off to have privacy in order to be focused in their thoughts. This makes them feel secure and comfortable. Yeah, okay, again, Paulo, know you, okay? Work really hard to avoid that you. All right? Okay. Arjun says, to be honest, the most tranquil environment for introspection and reflection is at home, where the mind is at peace. Personally, when my mind isn't cluttered with external noise, I feel comfortable with deep thoughts or deep thinking at home. Okay, Arjun, nice vocabulary. Express your idea a little bit clearer, but very good use of vocabulary. Introspection. So inspect. Intro means to inside, and introspection is the word for looking within oneself to understand and figure out internal thoughts and emotions. It's called introspection. So very nice. I'll use that in a moment so everybody can learn that. Okay. June says there are a variety of places to stay away from the crowd depending on preference. Some people prefer tranquil places like their home or libraries, while others would go for some more noisy places like the night market or nightclub. It's kind of weird, June. I mean, I've never personally went to a nightclub to be alone with my thoughts. So careful, content matters. Okay. It is plural, places. Okay. So a couple of good locations for people to introspect. Okay. Introspection is the noun. Introspect is the verb. All right, so learn that form as well. So a couple of good locations for people to introspect are in the safety of their homes, often the bedroom, which is private, or out in tranquil nature, like a forest or a remote beach, where there are few people. I like going down to Dallas Beach near my home for a walk. I find the sound of the waves crashing helps to calm my nerves and allows me to be deep with my own emotions and ideas. Okay, all right, here we go. So repeat after me. Where are good places for people to be alone with their own thoughts? A couple of good locations for people to introspect are in the safety of their homes, often the bedroom, which is private, or out in tranquil nature like a forest or a remote beach where there are few people. I like going down to Dallas Beach near my home for a walk. I find the sound of the waves crashing helps to calm my nerves and allows me to be deep with my own emotions and ideas. Notice the smooth example. I don't say for example, I just quickly throw the example in there. This way the examiner will not interrupt me, and I'm going to pick up more marks for good coherence, fluency, and communication. Okay? Now, if you haven't said much, the examiner will ask you to elaborate. However, if you've given an answer like this, then they will probably just move to the next question. And we're going to do that now. So we're going to move to the following question. Isolation has been used as a form of punishment for many centuries. Should be a period there. Is this acceptable? Okay, so be ready. Sometimes the questions can be quite provocative and very different from what you're used to. Okay, so isolation has been used as a form of punishment for many centuries. Is this acceptable? Very often IELTS will have this kind of like agree, disagree type question in part 3. Okay. All right. Kamya says, I don't think it is acceptable because I think an intellectual can explore with new knowledge just by meeting with new surroundings. Moreover, sometimes it is essential to be alone, but not for a long time. Kamya, that's not a clear answer. Try to rethink it. Think about what you're actually trying to tell me. Okay. Okay, Alex says, well, to separate one person from society is not an ideal punishment unless he or she has murdered someone. Although nowadays isolation quarantine is mandatory due to COVID-19. Alex, you're going off topic. COVID-19, we're not isolating to punish each other. We're isolating for safety reasons. It's a little bit different. Okay, so stick to the topic, right? Kevin says, no, I don't think it's legitimate to alienate one nation outright because more often than not, victims are just innocent people who are trapped within the vicious situation of deteriorating life standards and not being able to free themselves due to border closure. I think, Kevin, you maybe misread the question here. Ramnik says, I think yes, because it allows the prisoner to introspect and think upon his deeds and potentially improve his life. Yeah, Ramnik, good. You didn't overthink it. Of course, you visualized it. Prisoners, right? We isolate people socially who have done wrong to get them to think about, what they've done. And because we're social creatures, it's a negative. We feel punished when we are isolated from society for long periods of time. Absolutely. It's better than beating people or hanging people, right? Think about the alternative punishments as well. Arda says, yes, I think it's acceptable and I think it's a good idea for criminals. When people commit a crime, they are sent to prisons and they are alone, separated from society. That would make them think about what they did. Arda, very good. That's exactly what we're fishing for here, what kind of answer we're going for. Arjun Narayan, very nice vocabulary. Arjun says, solitary confinement has proven to be an effective measure for reprimand, but as a tool for reformation, in my opinion, it isn't acceptable since it violates human rights. Okay, Arjun, good answer. However, if you go that distance that it violates human rights, in my mind as your listener, I'm thinking, why? Why does it violate human rights? Explain it to me. Okay, so if you're going to say that, explain it to me. And then Arjun says there are better ways for reformation, like social services. Okay, good. So you have a lot of ideas, Arjun, but be careful not to present so many ideas that there's a lack of clarity in what you're saying. Okay. Eurabisha says, yeah, it is. Isolation can tremendously make a person realize what they've done, and it's a soft but effective and fair punishment by taking away their freedom to socialize because of their criminal activities. Eurabisha, good. I made a few corrections there. Take notice of that. Okay. All right. So, yes, I do. Okay. So, yes, I am in agreement with the practice of solitary confinement in order to reform individuals that have wronged society in some way. In fact, this is the method employed by most prison systems around the world. This measure keeps society safe from the aggressor, as well as giving time to introspect and improve on one's moral values. Okay. All right. So Band 9 answers, vocabulary, fluency. Here we go. Repeat after me. Isolation has been used as a form of punishment for many centuries. Is this acceptable? Yes, I am in agreement with the practice of solitary confinement in order to reform individuals that have wronged society in some way. In fact, this is the method employed by most prison systems around the world. This measure keeps society safe from the aggressor, as well as giving time to introspect and improve on one's moral values. All right. And at this point, as long as you're doing a good job, the examiner is going to continue asking you some questions as long as they have a bit more time. Okay, if they're coming up on that 12-minute mark and they've gauged your level accurately, they'll probably stop. But if they're at 10 minutes and they feel like, hey, this person's doing quite good, I might ask them one or two more questions to make sure that they are a Band 8 or a Band 9, then they'll continue and they'll ask you some more questions on the topic of part 2, like let's talk about relationships. And then they'll ask some questions like what is important to maintain a healthy relationship with others. For example, I'll leave you these questions to practice with each other. Again, students, remember that on our website, you can practice with each other by clicking the student partner speaking button, and then you accept the terms, meaning you're going to be nice with each other, and then you'll find each other in this kind of page here. Just keep it open, and you can audio and video chat, and that's true for academic IELTS help and general IELTS help as well. And if you like our content, you can join our premium package. Just click that big red button to join us there. That's it for me for today. I hope you picked up some valuable tips and got in some valuable practice. Thank you to our moderator, Carolina. Thank you to our members for your continued support. You help us make this all happen. Thank you for our viewers. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend. And hopefully I'll catch you on Wednesday at the same time, where we will continue with a fresh new speaking part 1 questions and answers. You're very welcome, Ramneek Kamola. Have a fantastic day, everybody. Much love to all of you wherever you are in this beautiful world. I'm Adrian, signing out from Victoria. Bye.